Trump just won this district by 30 points. Mike Waltz won it, you look at last time, 33 points.
Yeah.
So if you're going to come in 8 to 10 or wherever this is going to ultimately settle, that sure would be a warning sign in a district that Trump won by maybe 10 or 15 points.
I got to be honest. I mean, Aaron, a win is a win, but I've worked on a lot of races as a Republican strategist. I'm personally not happy with just winning by 8 or 9 points. That's why I've been saying 15. Now, some of my Republican friends aren't going to like me saying this. Losing by half of what the president's performance was, I can deal with that. I think it does defeat the Democrats' message and ability to say that this is somehow a mandate. But when you get that close, you now enable your opposition to go to their donors to say, imagine what we can do with this type of financial support in moderate-leaning purple districts. Right. Imagine how we could potentially flip. You don't want to cede that ground going into midterms next year. And my worry here is that if we don't perform at least close to 15, as close as possible, you give Democrats that opportunity on a silver platter.
A big win for the Democratic-backed candidate in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Liberal Judge Susan Crawford leading by over 165,000 votes compared to President Trump's just over 29. Excuse me. The other judge's 29,000 vote lead. Excuse me. Messing this up. President Trump's just over 29,000 vote lead in November. She's leading in 8 counties that President Trump won. Do you see this as some sort of referendum on?
Look, not really. I mean, I've been trying not to overread any of this, good or bad, for either party. I mean, it's an off-year, off-cycle, special circumstance. So the turnout is just so much different than a midterm or a presidential. I mean, my takeaways from the night are really, where do we go from here? The Republicans still have a small majority in the House. They got their wins tonight. That's good if you're a Republican. Voter ID, still popular apparently. That's good if you're Donald Trump because he was for that. And turning out these low-propensity Trump-aligned voters is still a major problem for the Republicans. That's bad. And so if I'm looking out into the future, the Republicans, have something to work with in the House, but also something to work on as it relates to the structural nature of how the party works now. It's a major flip. This used to be the Democrats' problem. You guys had the low-propensity voters. We sort of dominated in these low-turnout settings. Now it's the opposite. Lower turnout, better for Democrats. Higher turnout, better for Republicans.
We still have a lot of low-propensity voters that we need to work on doing, just for my party to stay aware on that. 2 things I would say is, one, we sat here November 5th or November 6th election, by the time the election was called, and I was told that there was a mandate. Tonight is a reminder that Republicans won in November, but there is not an overhaul mandate to totally disrupt and change everything in our systems, because we're just seeing that in Wisconsin, a battleground state, and even by the margin shrinking in Florida. Yes, the Republicans won, but that is clear that voters are watching, and they're not saying just take a chainsaw, I would say. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say to Democrats is do something. We were talking tonight about Cory Booker. You can win. Stop playing scared. Get out there, start testing stuff, start trying to engage with people, get out of the national ivory tower of Washington, D.C., take it to the streets.
Do you see Democrats doing that in states around the country?
They need to do more. I'm not satisfied. I'll say that. I think they need to do more. I think they need the fight that people want Democrats to do for them, meaning not a literal fight, but fight for their rights, fight for their benefits, fight for a better America. They are not feeling right now, and there is more that people can do. And quite honestly, the people who elect it, including myself, the individuals who hold these offices, we deserve a better fight from Democrats.
Listen, I think if you're the NRCC, you're kind of sighing a sigh of relief tonight and patting yourself on the back that you kept these margins still to double digits in both of these Florida seats. But I think it is an indicator that going into the midterms, you've got some seats that are a lot closer. You've got some swing seats in New York, for example, that they need to be cognizant that this is likely going to be in midterms, that in the House, at least, could be a potentially massive swing against the incumbent, the Republicans. But I honestly think the big takeaway from tonight, I think a lot of people are going to forget about both Wisconsin and Florida. I think Cory Booker's speech matters. I'm not the audience for it, but this thing's already gotten over 1 million views on TikTok. It's going viral. People are seeing it. And I hear it from Democrats all the time. They feel like no one's fighting for them. They're like, who is our leader? Chuck Schumer is saying, if we fight, we win. But like, well, you're not fighting and you're not winning. So he at least showed that he was willing to take action. And they've got words that they can work with. And it's a younger generation voice that they can look to.
If the 25 hours got 1 million views, I'd be.
I mean,
Excerpts.
actually, to be honest, excerpts.
Yeah.
And I don't want Democrats to look at this victory and think that we've been doing things right, to Ashley's point, because there is so much more fight that needs to happen. There's so much more Cory Booker energy that we saw over the last 5 hours that needs to be displayed, not just for the next 2 years into the midterm, not just through the presidential, but consistently. And another thing I will say on the other hand is that Republicans put a lot into saying that Brad Schimel is going to uplift and support the Donald Trump agenda. That was in so many of the door hangers, so many of the mailers. They made it more political and made the campaign more aligned with Donald Trump than Democrats did. You know, we talked about Elon Musk, but they wanted voters to know that Brad Schimel supported Donald Trump's agenda, and they responded in kind. So I'm still, thinking that this is a really good sign for, politically for us to come going into the midterm.
Let's get right to CNN. Senior political analyst Mark Preston is with us. Let's start in Wisconsin. Again, Wisconsin, we're used to razor-thin races. Here, the Democratic-backed candidate won by 10. It's a bad showing for Elon Musk, Mark.
Bad showing for Elon Musk, but it also shows us that the only thing that trumps money in politics is anger. And Democrats right now are incredibly angry, not only at Elon Musk, but at their own party. So as they look ahead, John, to see what their message is going to be as they try to take on Trump over the next couple of years, try to take back Congress in the midterms, and of course, try to take back the presidency in 4 years, is can they be united? And that is what is going to keep the Democratic Party together. We'll see a big fight between liberals and centrists about the control of the party, the direction of the party. But the reality is Democrats, if they are to win, they got to stay united. We saw that in Wisconsin.
Now, in Florida, Republicans were able to hang on to 2 House seats there. That was expected, but Democrats really cut in to the Republican margins there.
Yeah, they certainly did. And let's go back to what I just said about anger. There's a lot of anger out there, of course, now in the Democratic Party. But what's interesting about Florida, though, specifically in the race that we're all paying close attention to, which was on the East Coast, is that Republicans didn't have a great candidate. And we've seen this in the past where Republicans will go out and they will bring people into the fold and they will endorse candidates that don't necessarily fit the district, might be too conservative, may say inflammatory things. Well, in the case of this candidate, John, he wasn't even really fundraising, and he was hoping just to kind of draft his way in, was under a lot of criticism. Republicans do have to focus on who they put into these seats. But having said that, yes, alarm bells going across right now, not only for Donald Trump, but think about all the Democrats, rather Republicans, that are going to face these Democrats in the midterm elections. Donald Trump isn't on the ballot, but he is on the ballot in the midterms, John.
Yeah, swings of 15 or 16 points would certainly be enough to help Democrats take back the House in a year and a half. And just I want to note, the other Florida race did not get the national attention. It swung perhaps even bigger, and that may be seen as the more generic ballot test here, right? Because national resources didn't pour in at the last minute.
Absolutely. Absolutely right there. And especially in that District 2, which is incredibly conservative up there on the panhandle of Florida. It was Matt Gaetz' seat, for God's sake. So, yes, Republicans right now are certainly worried. Those here in Washington who are charged with trying to keep the Republican majority in the House and Senate, trust me, this morning, they're trying to figure out how to keep the House and Senate, John.
Yeah, although a small consolation prize, their margins in the House just got substantially bigger, which will help Mike Johnson going forward. All right, Mark Preston, thank you very much.